Greens that came here from America and the locals that were here who were predominantly black, because during this time period, Jim Crow was still going on in America.
Well, from what I was able to glean from my research, it was hell for Virgin Islands during the period of military government, you know. And the only option for many was to break camp and get out of town, because when the Danish left, the economy, the little that was left, the slave economy was done, and America's interest was primarily military, because what happened in 1917, in the wake of the transfer, 2 weeks after the transfer was consummated, the U.S. entered the First World War.
That's right.
You see? And so it was the interest of the U.S. to cover their southern flank, you see, from the Germans, which is what was the impetus for the development of the relationship.
Another interesting thing to add there is that through working on the timeline with my Danish counterpart, Gita Westergaard Peterson, she actually informed me that Denmark and Germany were actually at war, constantly throughout the course of history. So that only contributed to the U.S. fears of Germany taking over the Danish West Indies at the time.
Absolutely, and so it's very colorful and brutal, history on these islands. And so after, or in 1927, when citizenship was finally conferred by the Congress of the U.S. and Virgin Islands became statutory citizens, then things began to get a little better because of their citizenship designation. But just to embellish on the word statutory, means that it was conferred by Congress, and it can be taken away by Congress as well. And a statutory citizenship has limitations because, as you know, Virgin Islands can't vote for the President of the United States.
So does that relate to us being an unincorporated territory?
No, that really relates to the general status, you see, of the territory. Even if the territory became incorporated, that won't change the statutory situation within the United States.
What will change it is if we have a constitution, okay? Puerto Rico has it's a Commonwealth situation. Oh, Commonwealth situation. And we have the Organic Act. Okay, so in a way, the Constitution is what will give that difference, just takes it to the next level.
That's correct. Well, at this point, the VI Constitution is the revised Organic Act, which was designed by Congress. And local politics has pretty much dismissed the prospect, at least for the five constitutional commissions that were in place here in the VI. There has been no real definitive movement toward a constitution, and it is a very colorful debate, that continues. But the fact we can't deny is that Virgin Islands, in particular, are new to government. You see, it was only since 1970 that the Virgin Islands had its own elected governor, you see. And the political parties here in the Virgin Islands pretty much mimic the political parties in the States, although there are some clear differences in terms of the culture and so forth. But for some strange reason, the local parties mimic the stateside Democrat and Republican and third party scenarios. And that is a major difficulty because as we speak, and just from the standpoint of an astute observer of local politics is in a pretty dire situation. And I don't want to be more graphic than that as a newcomer, but there is no foreseeable remedy to the situation in the foreseeable future. And so ultimately some might argue, we are currently in a revolutionary situation here in the VI.
Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta become a born again Crucian on this subject. Because although you're the Crucian, one of the Crucians in the house, I beg to differ a little bit. Mm-hmm. And my begging to differ.
That's healthy.
I know. I know. And I've been here 24 years. Okay, and I do agree that we have some situations that go on when it comes to politics. But I beg to differ also when it comes to American politics. We didn't become into that whole arena of politics until 1970 when it became United States politics. I want to go back to the fact that we have always had a form of governing, and the fact that without, we had like a separate situation, you understand? And without the United States, if it wasn't for the United States getting involved, whatever, St. Croix, they've always had some sort of political situation where they've developed their own, their strength. And I'm not going to just say, I'm going to say the Virgin Islands, okay? I'm going to say the Virgin Islands because the same, and only because I know these individuals and study these individuals that basically came out of your free gut. Going back a little bit to the revolt that I didn't bring up before, it was in 1859.
17.
17, these numbers. 1759. In 1759, you had a group of people that said, oh, we're supposed to be free. So they say. We have an area called Free Gut. And guess what? The individuals who were supposed to have the freedom is who set up this revolt in 1857. So it took...
17.
In 1757, thank you. In 1757...
59.
Y'all cut that out, okay. In 1759, there was a revolt that was set up by Virgin Islanders. On St. Croix, I should say, by Crucians. And some of them weren't all from St. Croix, they came from other places. It was Hector, who I believe came from Anegada. It was William Davis, who was actually, all of these free individuals. William Davis worked for the judge that was in charge at the time. And there was a third one, French. Okay, so it was either French or Hector that was outside of here. But these individuals, they sit down, they come up with this situation, they are classified as freed individuals. And they say, I'm not satisfied with you just keeping me within a 2-block radius. And even though it was growing at that point in time, they came up and they took that whole governing process into their own hands. I would also argue that, and we had a class system, because there's a point that there's something that goes on here that people always forget when they deal with the history. And I have to step it back a little bit, because I talked about early on, and we talked about Virginia and that stuff, but we forget to talk about 1801 to 1803 when the British came into St. Croix, and we always forget to talk about 1807 to 1815. Okay, that is key to some of the stuff that's going on, and as the result of that comes about. And I was just reading a young lady named Smith, I can't remember her first name, book recently that was written in 2011, because I not only read the United States version now in history, I read the British version now in history, being that I'm part of both. Okay, and so. And the French stuff too. Trust me, I haven't been through it. I love this stuff. I can't get stuff done for doing this stuff. But anyway, so what you gotta consider is these individuals. They basically come in. The British come in because they're told that you can no longer. From this is like 1797, 1791, the Tsar case. You can no longer bring these individuals as enslaved individuals into across these seas as enslaved, okay? And they come in and they decided, well, I'm not about to give up slavery, so I can't bring these individuals in, but I'm going to go ahead and continue to produce these individuals. And so that's when the creolization, which is from the French, which was from early on in Africa, that's when they started reintroducing that. Let me just give you the names of that so that those that hearing me may hear it. That's when they began breeding. They've always done it, but that's when they began breeding even more so. So you had your mulatto bred by a white, that would be a black bred by a white became a mulatto. A mulatto bred by a white became a mustee. A mustee bred by a white became a castee. A castee bred by a white became what they call a pustee or puree, and then was classified as later on white. And this all goes back into your Harlem again, because during the night, when we start talking about Harlem, and when they first went into the city, into the States, into New York City, they wasn't in Harlem. My grandfather's stuff shows
right, it was down.
He was on 62nd Street.
Yeah.
They were on 62nd, 63rd Street.
Where Lincoln Center is.
And how did they get up to Harlem? They motivated themselves. They kept going up and they wouldn't let them come in. And so your lighter complexion ones, those that were passing, could go in and decided to deal with the individuals that was there, and eventually, without everybody even knowing what happened and hit. So that's a governing process, okay? When we got into and I totally agree with you when it comes to American politics, when we got into politicking the American way, which is why we have issues right now, and I'm talking on behalf of the Caribbean and the Virgin Islanders in particular, but I want to go on and say, even with African Americans in the South, which also had to do with us coming into the South, and you know, we all came basically through this Middle Passage. We didn't get to the South without coming through this Middle Passage. So they have cut out a key component in our history when they cut out what went on in this Caribbean. Okay, so when you go into dealing with what went on in the South, all of that took place, and you brought that up one day in a conversation just the other day, how in the South, segregation was a form of outgoverning. Okay, Tulsa, Oklahoma. These individuals were, okay, well, we can't go out there. Okay, well, we're going to just keep bringing the money back up in here. We're going to take care of business. And then the next thing you know, people were coming in from outside, borrowing money from them. So that was a form of governing. So we cannot label our governing to just American governing. We got to talk about who we was and how we governed and how successfully we governed before it became American politics. Sorry.
Oh, I buy that. That's before my time. But no, I was just really commenting on the American dispensation,
right,
and the fact that black folk in general don't have a holistic understanding